Hi everyone, welcome to SecWise International's Phase 2 training seminar. My name's Andy, I'm the founder and training director at SecWise International, and today we're going to be looking at securing the laptop device plus a whole bunch of other things. So we're going to jump straight in and see what we're going to learn today. Just like in Phase 1, Phase 2 training will enhance the privacy and security of your devices, and this is our overall goal as we're working through these training seminars. We're going to gain knowledge and awareness needed to operate more securely, better laptop privacy to minimize data collection and tracking. We're going to do a laptop detox and security check for cross-cultural travel and cross-cultural living, installation and setup of essential security and privacy apps on our devices, browser security and hardening to protect our personal data, laptop encryption, keeping your device contents safe, Phase 2 monitoring and surveillance, censorship. We're going to be talking about firewalls as we touched on in Phase 1, but in Phase 2 we're going to be going more in depth and also talking about how we can come up with a workaround when these censorship situations happen. We're going to talk about operational security, creating identities and aliases, staying safe and secure on public hotspots, and we're going to introduce the Linux operating system and talk about putting this Linux operating system on a USB device. Just like in Phase 1, I've divided Phase 2 into sections here so we can keep everything nice and succinct and easy to follow. Let's jump into Part 1, and we're going to talk about operating systems for laptops. So the first thing we need to know is which is the operating system to use. Should we all use Apple MacBooks? Should we be getting Windows laptops or something different again? So just having a look at the graph here, we can see that overwhelmingly Windows laptops are the most popular at this point in time. Mac operating system make up a smaller amount, but they're gaining traction as well for sure. So if we look at the operating systems, Windows versus Mac, I just wanted to summarize some of the strengths and weaknesses of both operating systems, and that will give you the opportunity to pick the best operating system that is going to work for your situation. First of all, some strengths of Windows. Windows has great built-in security features. Back in the day when you bought a Windows machine, it would always come bundled with some kind of antivirus software. You had to buy third-party antivirus software, whether that was Norton, Kaspersky, Trend Micro, something like this. Nowadays, Windows has their own antivirus and cyber defense system built in, and it's called Windows Defender. We're going to have a look at that shortly. And this has a good range of medium level protection, and so this is a great feature that Windows has introduced recently. You have the flexibility to adjust different settings in the security and privacy dashboard. We're going to have a look at that. And one big benefit of Windows laptops is you can pick different manufacturers. For example, Lenovo make a Windows laptop with different hardware inside that is built for a specific kind of security. Dell has built-in hardware that is specific to the Dell brand that is good for different types of security measures as well. So these are some of the positives. On the downside, Windows being the most popular operating system means that hackers, attackers are going to target this operating system over Apple because it is overwhelmingly the dominant operating system in the world. And so if you can create a virus, a vulnerability for Windows operating system, you can use that on pretty much every company all around the world, and you're going to know that they are going to be using Windows machines. Now, telemetry means the data that is collected on the machine and sent back to HQ for different purposes. Now, Windows is known to collect a large amount of data, send it back to Microsoft for analyzing and understanding how users interact with the laptop. And this can be seen as a negative because of the sheer amount of data that Windows collects and then sends back. And we're going to have a look at that in a bit more depth in just a moment. And also, this could just be me, but system glitches. I find using Windows and Mac operating systems pretty much on a daily basis. that Apple is very smooth, but Windows on the other hand, there's always some unknown issue that might happen. For example, you click on the start menu and it's just not popping up like it used to, and you spend a long time searching and trying to find a solution for it, and then you find a very obscure solution. You have to go into parts of the computer you've never been into before and turn some setting off, and then it's magically fixed. And so there's a lot of system glitches, I think, that happens with Windows operating system because they're designing Windows to run on all different sorts of machines. Asus, Dell, MSI, Razer, Lenovo, and on and on and on. And so this means you're going to find it's a bit more buggy, and you'll find some glitches when using Windows from time to time. Now let's look at Mac operating system and a summary of the strengths and weaknesses of the Apple Mac operating system. First of all, configured security. Now this is a positive and a negative, like we talked about with iPhone, but most of the security configuration, the things turned on, turned off, etc., happens behind the scenes with Apple Mac. They like to take care of that and not have it up front for the user to interact with. And so you don't really need to do a lot when you get an Apple Mac. There's some features that will turn on and off, but for the most part, they've set it up to be reasonably secure out of the box. Next is integration. Apple products within the ecosystem, as you would surely know if you're an Apple user, they just work seamlessly together. You get messages on your phone, they pop up on the laptop, your notes, your emails. There's many things that sync together well when you're using a complete ecosystem of Apple devices, the laptop, the phone, and the tablet, for example. And it is a reliable experience. You know, Apple, they only need to design the software, the Mac operating system, for just a few different configurations of computer, whether it's the 8GB RAM, the 16GB, the M1 chip, the different size storages. That's really it. And so when Mac builds the operating system, you find it's very smooth. I find there's not many glitches that happen at all. And for years to come, it seems to me that it just runs really, really, really well. Now, some of the negatives are the limitations that Apple puts on its operating system. Just like I said before with the configured security being a positive, if you really want to get in and tweak it for a more specific security need that you have, then you're going to find it's going to be lacking in that area. There's not a lot you can do to change or to upgrade the security hardness of the laptop. And next is the Apple locked functions. You know, there's no complete control over the network traffic, for example. So if you're running a VPN, you would expect that all of the traffic is going to be leaving the computer and going through the VPN. But Apple, they have a lot more control over that in the background. And so that's not the case. Apple will still send a lot of their own traffic outside of the VPN and some other things as well. And so there is some locked functionality that you'll find Windows is much more accommodating when it comes to setting up different security applications than Apple Mac is. And on that, finally, the software options. With Microsoft, you have so many apps that you can install to create a better security posture of the laptop. But for Apple Mac, there's not so much in that area. So on to built-in security. If we're looking at Microsoft Windows, the Windows Security Center has some good foundational features to turn on for effective security. And so to get to that center, I'll show you the long way first of all, and just so you understand a bit about the Microsoft settings if you're not familiar with it before. So we open up the settings, we go into System, and then you'll find on the left-hand side, like here, Privacy and Security. Then we have Windows Security here. We're going to click on that. And then Open Windows Security. And when it opens, you'll be met with this screen, and you'll see everything that can be ticked is ticked there. And if you don't have a tick, you can click on it and it will tell you some setting that it would like to turn on to make sure the device security level is up to standard. And you can go into each of these features and see what it's doing, and they're quite customizable, which is something I think is really, really great for Microsoft Windows. Over to the Apple Mac side now, and much of Apple's built-in security is, like I said, behind the scenes. And although it is comprehensive, the level of security, Apple doesn't give the user many controls to be able to adjust. So when we get into the settings on Mac OS, we can go down to Privacy Security, And this is pretty much it there. We get to file vault, which we're going to talk about, and lockdown mode we touch on in phase 3. But there's really not a lot that you can do as far as adjusting the security settings of the laptop. So this brings us to the question how to maintain a high level of security and privacy while balancing functionality. If we look at evaluating our devices, we can always ask the question, do I really need this setting, or do I really need this application installed? And it's best to keep things to a minimum where possible. We don't want to have 50, 70, 90 applications installed on our devices. That would just be complete overkill unless you're someone in that category that really needs that. And all of the settings, we don't need to have them all turned on. We want to lock down the laptop, lock down the amount of information it is sending out into the cyberspace, and make sure that we're keeping it nice and clean and simple as far as a functionality point of view. We can also ask ourselves, is this the best option? Am I getting a web browser that came installed with the operating system like Safari or Microsoft Edge? Is this the best option for a web browser, or are there better, more secure and privacy focused options out there? And if so, we should definitely get those. And finally, will it enhance my security? This is something we need to think about as well when we're choosing different applications, when we're choosing how to store our data, if we're storing it on the laptop or we're storing it in the cloud. Is this option going to enhance my security, or is this going to be a potential weakness? And then we can decide from there which option we're going to go with. Okay, let's move on to data collection and tracking. Now, similarly in phase 1, we saw that there were different ways that the phone was collecting data and sending it out off the device, and we tried to minimize that, and we can do the exact same thing but in a slightly different way on our laptops. So first of all, we have the advertising ID for Microsoft Windows. We also have keystroke. It's kind of like keystroke logging in a way, although Microsoft Windows version 11 has clamped down on this a little bit, and also location history. So let's have a look. With an advertising ID, Windows collects different types of data about how you use your laptop, the websites you visit, and so on. And also location history records the places you go and sends that data to Microsoft HQ. So we can turn this off in the settings. If we go to the settings once again, privacy and security, which is down the left-hand side. And then we have these 3 places we're going to go to. So first of all, we're going to go into General. And here we will find let apps show me personalized ads by using my advertising ID. So we don't want to have that on. Let websites show me locally relevant content by accessing my language list. We turn that off. Let Windows improve start and search results by tracking app launches. There's no reason why we would want to give Windows that information. And finally, show me suggested content in the settings app. We don't want that either, so these can all be turned off. Next, we can jump into diagnostics and feedback. There's an optional diagnostic data that Microsoft sends. Now, we can't stop it sending all diagnostic data, but we can minimize it. So where it says send optional diagnostic data, we want to turn that off. And down the bottom, you can also delete the diagnostic data that has been collected from Microsoft as well. It does take a little bit of time, but you can request to have that deleted and they will delete it for you. And you can see there, improve inking and typing. Send optional inking and typing diagnostic data to Microsoft. We definitely don't want to be sending typing information off the computer. So that can be off. Tailored experiences, we can turn that off. And finally, view diagnostic data, turn that off also. And finally, location, you can simply turn the location services off. Now, there are times when you may want the location services on, and that's completely up to you depending on your situation. One might be if you're concerned about the laptop being stolen, the location services will need to be on in order for you to find it. But I think most of the time the location services is an overrated feature that we don't need to have on, and it's much better from a privacy point of view to keep location services turned off. Next, let's look at advertising ID and location history for Apple Mac. Mac OS has an advertising ID which collects information about searches, online purchases, social media, etc., and it transmits this back to Apple and to different places as well. macOS also has location recording called significant locations. You may remember this from phase 1 on the Apple mobile device. And these can be turned off in the settings by going to Settings, Privacy and Security. And you'll see the two options here, Analytics and Improvements and Apple Advertising. When you jump into Analytics and Improvements, Share Mac Analytics, we can turn that off. Improve Siri and Dictation, we don't want to have that turned on. And Share with App Developers, unless you're really concerned about helping to improve app developers, you can have that turned off as well. And if you jump into Apple Advertising, you'll see down the bottom there, personalized ads. And so we can have that turned off for just a bit better privacy for the laptop. Next, if we go to Privacy and Security again and go to Location Services, we'll find in there Location Services, you can have this turned off or on. If in the case that you are traveling, to rural areas that may be hostile or challenging, you may want to have Find My Phone on, and that's completely acceptable for that kind of situation where you really need to be located. You need someone to be able to find you if you're not making contact by a certain time, or you're not back at your place that you're living by a certain time, whatever it might be. Then Find My Phone would be a great service to have on for those kinds of situations. So depending on what you're doing, where you're living, you can have location services turned on or off for your particular purpose, but this is where you'll find that setting. When we go into System Services down the bottom and we click on Details, you'll see this option come up, Significant Locations. And again, we can have this turned off. I don't think this having the locations recorded of the places that you regularly visit is something that we want to have on regardless of where we're living. So you can go into details and see a bit more information there, or you can simply turn it off. Next, let's look at Laptop Detox and Security Check. Now this is a guide to check laptops for privacy and security related concerns and minimize the attack surface. So checking the device, first of all, a successful detox will remove any non-essential applications and files, possibly restoring the laptop to factory settings, and then install the necessary tools. So what I mean by that is you can go through the laptop and try and find all the things that you don't want on there when you're going to relocate or travel to another country, for example. Or you can simply wipe or erase the laptop all the way back to as if it was brand new coming out of the shop. Now, I wouldn't suggest to do this by yourself if you're not a little bit experienced with computers. And you need to be aware of where your data is actually stored. If it's all stored on the computer, then it needs to be backed up to something. You don't want to lose your data and files and things that you have kept on there. But that would be a great way to completely clean slate the computer and then install only the applications that you really need. You can locate any sensitive personal and business files if you don't want to wipe the computer completely, and then move those to a secure location. A security check can involve a virus, malware scan if you want to purchase something like that, app permissions overview like we did with the phone, and install specific software and enabling automatic updates to further harden and better secure the laptop. Let's talk about device encryption. Now what this means basically is that if someone takes your laptop and they pull the hard drive out, for example, and try and plug it into something else to see what's on the hard drive, if the hard drive is encrypted, it means they're not going to be able to see what's on the hard drive at all. Only once you put in your login password will that decrypt the information. And so device encryption is a really great idea. Not every laptop does it, especially with Windows. It depends on what version of Windows you have and what laptop. So you can encrypt the hard drive if you have Windows 11 Pro or Windows 10 Pro, or if you have a Microsoft Surface device. So the way that you can check, it's called BitLocker on many devices, but you can go into your settings, go into System, go down to Storage, and then go to Storage Spaces, and then you'll see your C drive there, which is your main drive. And if you click on the properties, you'll be able to see down the bottom BitLocker. And if you have the option to turn that on, then that is a great security win for your laptop, and definitely turn that on. It might take some time to encrypt all the information, but once that's done, it just means when you log in and you put your password in, then the hard drive is decrypted and you're able to use it. But if the password's not put in, then it is encrypted and it can't be read by anyone else. Let's jump over to Apple Mac again. Now the process of encrypting the hard drive on Mac OS is pretty simple. We just need to go to the settings, but very important with Mac, they do require a password for the encryption as well, so you want to make sure you don't forget that password. But you go to privacy and security, and this is called File Vault on Apple Mac. So you can turn on File Vault. It will ask for a recovery password that you need to put in to decrypt it. I think many people just use the same password that is their login password for this, but just make sure it's something you definitely don't forget, because if you forget it, you may not be able to get into your laptop or get into the information that's on there in the future. If you remember in phase 1, we talked about apps and permissions. Now Microsoft Windows have a similar setup to Android and iOS devices. But regularly checking these for a laptop detox or a security check is going to help enhance the security of the device and make sure the apps that you have on there have permissions to the microphone or the camera or the things that you have given it access to and you want them to have access to it. So first check that the apps are installed on the PC, and if they are essential, you can keep them. If they're not essential, you can just go through and start deleting the applications off there. So if you go to the settings, you go to apps, and you go to apps and features, here it will bring up the list of apps that are installed on the device. Now you'll see the 3 dots on the right hand side. Most of the apps that are not built in by Microsoft, some of those can't be deleted, but many of them can as well. So you can just go through, click on the 3 dots, and if you want to uninstall it, you just click uninstall and you're done. In Apple Mac OS, first you want to delete unnecessary apps also before we get to the permissions. And this is usually done, it's a bit different on Apple Mac. You can drag it from the applications folder and drag it straight to the trash. And this will either just delete it and it doesn't have any message pop it up at all, or you'll get some uninstallation window pop up that will take you through the uninstall process. And for permissions, we can go to the system settings and then privacy and security once again. And then there is your list, your contacts, calendar, photos, microphone, camera. You can just click on that and see which apps have access to each of these things, and you can turn it on or off as you need. Next, we're going to have a look at operational security. Now, this is a big, important topic, and so I want to take a bit of time to talk about a few things related to operational security. The first one is surveillance. So we're going to look at the importance of being aware of various surveillance methods and practices. Now, this relates primarily to people who are traveling, especially to sensitive nations, but it's good for everyone to be aware of how different nations operate, especially if we're communicating even from our home country into these nations. Important surveillance principles. First of all, let's touch on surveillance technologies. These are utilized to gather, to monitor, to extract and investigate digital data from both local and foreign sources. There are many points of capture when we're talking about surveillance, especially digital surveillance. As digital information is transmitted and received, there are many exposed points along the way that an adversary could capture information. And unlike the old days, where if you wanted to see where a person was frequenting, you would have to send someone to go and follow that person around. Not anymore. Now everything is automated. So the capture, the storage, the analysis of digital information is largely automated, and therefore any human limitations are now gone, and it's all up to computers and algorithms to gather and collect and sort through tons of information. And so this makes surveillance a lot easier today than it was 30, 40, 50 years ago. So what does the state of global surveillance mean for us? Well, if you're considering global work and travel, the first thing we need to be aware of is adversarial exploitation. What does that mean? Our devices may be exploited by adversaries for spying purposes. If the device is compromised, the microphone, camera, and storage could be accessed. There's comprehensive digital logging. That means that our devices keep track of a vast range of activities, such as texting, calling, online searches, social media engagement, timestamps, and location data, and this can be used for surveillance purposes. The effects of surveillance. It's not only our data and our lives we want to protect, it's the lives of the people we are reaching and serving among as well. So our devices can not only expose things about ourselves, it can also expose people that we're trying to reach, maybe in a rural village somewhere, that people are starting to receive the gospel, for example. We're also putting those people at risk in certain nations just by visiting them and bringing our phone, which tracks our location, into this village. And finally, proactive digital security. It's essential to be vigilant. If targeted by a determined nation state, evading surveillance can be incredibly difficult without robust security measures in place. Now, we've talked about Google, Facebook, and Apple, and these big tech companies and how they collect a lot of information. But what you may not be aware of as well is that the big tech complies with government requests. So if we look, for example, this is a Facebook website, and you can find this in the links attached to this Phase 2 training seminar. You go to the Facebook website and they'll show you which country has requested information about Facebook users and what kind of information was given over. So this is just an overview of the different nations that have requested information, and as you can see, from January to June 2022. And if we have a look here, we can see the number of requests starting back in 2013 was not that high, but as we go up to 2022, you'll see that different governments around the world are utilizing the fact that these big tech companies are doing a lot of these surveillance for them. And if they can just give a subpoena, a quick court order, in order to hand over some information, then that is going to be a big win for them. If we go now also to Google, this is from Google's own transparency report that you can find online as well at the Google website, linked in this course. And again, the same trend is that back 10, 15 years ago, 20 years ago, there was really no government requests for this sort of information. But as you can see, over the last 10 to 12 years, the amount of requests has gone up exponentially as governments utilize these surveillance aspects of these big tech companies. Even looking specifically at Australia, we can see the same kind of trend. It's just going up and up over the last 10 years. And it even gives you a small breakdown into what they're requesting. Now, it's quite vague, but you'll see other legal requests. There was 2,768 account requests. 87% of those were successful and some data was handed over. Next, let's touch on censorship. And this is an overview of some censorship methods, the risks and some possible workarounds that might be beneficial to you if you're caught in a situation where the internet is being censored for different reasons. There's national censorship. Nations have the ability to censor the internet for different purposes. It could be due to internal anti-government protest or simply blocking access to outside information, which happens in China, for example. Censorship can come from a device like a firewall blocking traffic going out into the cyberspace, stopping any unauthorized internet traffic, for example, just blocking WhatsApp. Firewalls will block specific content, IP addresses, websites, social media, etc. Those living in nations which censor the internet and internet traffic may find it difficult to communicate to the outside world in these kinds of scenarios. It is possible to bypass firewalls in many circumstances, and we'll have a look at this soon. However, if you are attempting to bypass a firewall or the censorship blockages that has been put in place, it's important to understand the risks associated with that. And we're talking here very specific, unique emergency situations that you really need to get an urgent communication out, but you're unable to. Then you would try and follow some of these workarounds to get that urgent emergency communication out. There is an organization called netblocks.org which monitors different internet outages around the world. If we look at this example from Suriname in 2023, February, we can see that what is down? Instagram is down, Facebook, WhatsApp. And so during this unrest that's happening within the country, they've decided to shut down, not the entire internet, but these platforms in order to stop certain communication or certain methods of sending out videos of things that are happening on the ground. And it is, unfortunately, a great way to stop information getting out of the country. And here in Iran in 2022, we see that WhatsApp was pretty much taken down across most of these cellular providers. Now we're going to look at, coming up soon, some different methods that we may be able to circumvent this kind of censorship in an emergency situation. But next we're going to talk identities. This is just an introduction to online identities, aliases, and the option of compartmentalizing our digital lives. The different strategies that are in place that one may be able to use. The first would be the open strategy. Now many believe that this is the best strategy to use. You have legitimate reason to be in the country, a legitimate visa, your real identity is known, your real occupation is known, and it might be a teacher or an engineer or something like that. And in that situation, you're kind of free to be your own identity and have your own public Facebook account with your public name, and that situation might work for you. And so the open strategy, using your real identity and being open and transparent on social media, with your emails, as far as regarding the government and the information that you give to them as well. Everything is above board. The next is an audience strategy, and so we try to separate identities for different aliases and different accounts. So if I wanted to talk to someone online about Christianity or something like that within the country, maybe for one particular audience, I'll have one identity, and for another audience, I'll have maybe my real identity. And similarly, there's the content strategy. So one identity posting or sending carefully created content to different areas online or to different applications. And finally, there's compartmentalization. So using multiple separate identities and attempting not to cross-contaminate each one. Now this can be very difficult to do, and so it would really depend on your own situation and the nation you're living in, the level of surveillance, and what kind of legitimacy you have in the country. So let's look at 5 steps to assist identity protection and mitigate surveillance. First is the zero trust model. So don't share your operational security methods, for example, your other identities, your alternative operating system, something like that. Use a zero trust model, and this is always best, especially going into a new country. We don't know who is who. We don't know if someone is being friendly because they're a friendly culture, or if they're being friendly to assess us and see if we are a trustworthy person or if we're going to cause issues within the country. The separation method. Avoid contaminating identities. First point is we want to keep our emails separate and our communications separate. Use browser isolation. If you're wanting to log into a secure email, you could have a browser just for that, and then the other browser you can use for your regular web browsing. That would be an example of not contaminating identities. We want to minimize our digital footprint and our online information. So don't send text or unencrypted communications. In fact, everything that we do, as much as possible, should be encrypted. We need a high level of professionalism. So being professional, taking a logical and systematic approach to your decisions. And finally, protection. Protect your digital information and devices. So based on your level of risk, choose the right technology to protect what matters most to you. Next, we're going to look at laptop hardening strategies. So we touched on VPN in phase 1 when we were talking about phones. So let's have a brief overview of VPN services and their real-world applications that we might be able to use. So a VPN will change your IP address and therefore mask your real location. This helps both everyday people and those who rely on a private internet connection for their work. So if you're working within a certain country, you can be connected to a VPN server in Germany, and then all of your internet traffic, for the most part, it's going to look like you're doing all your searches online, you're sending all information from your laptop into the cyberspace. It's all going to look like it's coming from Germany and not from the place that you're currently in. In certain situations, a VPN may help bypass censorship firewalls when the internet is being blocked and urgent communications need to be sent out. A VPN will encrypt your data to protect you from internet service provider logging. further protect internet traffic and minimize your digital footprint. If you remember from phase 1, we talked a bit about the DNS server and how a lot of information from your laptop is going to the country's own DNS server, and therefore it is logging all the requests that are being made from your laptop. Connecting to a VPN means you're using the DNS server in another country that you're connected to, and therefore this is a much safer way to use the internet and different things on your device. Some VPN providers offer additional tools like a kill switch, double hop or server chaining, Tor over VPN, so sending your traffic to different locations around the world, and stealth mode, which is a feature of Proton VPN that we'll talk about later on. So what is the Tor network? If you think about your computer and you're connecting to the Tor network, or you're using the Tor browser, what happens to your traffic? Instead of it going directly to the DNS server and then to the company that you're trying to connect to, let's just use facebook.com for an example, the Tor network will send it through a series of nodes, a minimum of 3, and one node might be in Germany, another node might be in Nigeria, and another node might be in New Zealand, and then it's going to get to the nearest Facebook server that is in the final destination country, and then send it back to you through the Tor network. So this is a way of anonymizing your identity, because it's bouncing your traffic through different locations around the world, making it hard to track where is this request being sent from. So your real location is going to be hidden and your real identity is going to be hidden. So to give a bit of a visual with the Tor network, it can be accessed a few different ways. You can access it using a VPN, or you can get the Tor browser. And so this is the Tor browser for Mac. This is how it opens. We can go and configure the connection in a certain way, or we can just click connect, and it's going to establish that 3-node connection and bounce the traffic. Every search that I do in here is going to be bounced through those 3 different nodes and get to the final destination. That means if any point along the way is trying to look at where this traffic has come from, my real IP address, it's never going to be able to find it. So this is a great way to cover your real location, especially if you're sending an emergency communication. You may not want, and your life may depend on it, that your real location not be made available, especially in a heavy surveillance situation. So using the Tor browser or the Tor network in that situation may be a lifesaver for you. So to understand a little bit more about the Tor network, Tor stands for the Onion Router. When would we use it and its limitations? As we've discussed, it is an anonymization tool. So the Tor browser automatically routes its traffic through the anonymous Tor network. All Tor browser data is encrypted and relayed 3 times over the Onion Router network, which is global and has thousands of volunteer-run servers called Tor relays. In situations where a high level of anonymity is required, or an emergency communication needs to be sent in an internet-censored environment, as we've discussed, Tor may be a good option for you. It does, however, have some limitations. The Tor network can be slow to use, even on a fast internet connection. The internet service provider can see that a Tor connection has been made, and some websites may block incoming connections from a Tor relay as well, so that's something to keep in mind. Now we're going to do an overview of Proton VPN, the setup and some of the settings. When you first open the application and get connected, it's going to look something like this, and there's a few features that you can see here. In the preferences, you have some options to start the application every time the computer is turned on. In the connections tab there, you'll see you can auto connect. You can do options for quick connect. It can either be fastest connection or it can be a random connection. You have different protocols. You have WireGuard, you have Stealth Protocol, which is designed to hide the fact that you are using a VPN from the internet service providers and from the websites that you're going to. One of the features of Proton VPN is this feature called Net Shield. The Net Shield can block malware, can block annoying ads and trackers that are built into websites that you visit. The secure core function that I mentioned from phase 1 is basically all the internet traffic from the laptop is going to go first of all to Switzerland, where Proton VPN is based, and it's going to go through their secure core server first of all. Then it's going to send it to the secondary country that you've selected, Germany, France, Norway, wherever that might be. And this is just an added layer of security as well. If you're just a simple computer user, then all you need to do is open up Proton VPN, click on the country that you want to connect to, click connect, and that's it. You'll see that some countries have the ability to run their internet traffic through Proton VPN, through that encrypted tunnel, but it will also run it through the Tor network as well. And so this is a great feature if you really need a robust privacy, security, anonymized connection. So Tor over VPN, using Tor and VPN together, what are some of the pros and cons of using a connection like this? First of all, it hides the fact that you're using a Tor connection from your internet service provider. So that first hop from your laptop or from your router to the internet, if you're just using Tor, then they're going to see that it is a Tor connection. But if you're using a VPN, they're going to see either the VPN protocol, if that's WireGuard, for example, or if you're using the stealth mode, it's going to look like regular traffic to the internet service provider. It provides access to .onion websites. You can simultaneously use your regular browser for other activities if you also have the Tor browser using the Tor network. And it hides your true IP address from the Tor relay network, so even the Tor service doesn't know what your real IP address is either. Some of the cons: some websites, as we talked about, do not accept traffic from the Tor network. Your VPN knows your actual IP address, your real IP address. That's why it's important to make sure that you're using a trustworthy VPN service. So using Tor and VPN together, you're going to notice a slower than usual internet speed. But this kind of setup, it's not for everyday use where you would just open your laptop, open your Tor browser, turn the VPN on and just start using your computer just for daily, regular tasks. This would be for a very specific situation that may come up while you're serving overseas, where you really need to have a strong, anonymized, very secure connection to the internet for a specific purpose. There are many people who like to connect to the Wi-Fi at airports, or if they're sitting at a cafe, would like to ask, what is the password to the public hotspot that is available at the cafe. I would never recommend doing this just for casual, leisurely use. I think just having a SIM card in the phone and using the data that's on your phone is definitely the best and safest option. And so let's look at mitigating risks and staying safe if you do need to get on public or unsecured hotspots. The first thing I would say is avoid them at all costs. If you really need to, then it's an emergency situation. We'll go through some things that you can do here to make sure you're protected, but for the most part, there's really no reason that you would need to get on a Wi-Fi at the airport or a public hotspot. If possible, you can check if the hotspot is using WPA, WPA2 security standard. This can usually be found when prompted with the password to join the hotspot, or if you go into the network settings once you're connected, you'll be able to see what kind of protocol security is being used for the Wi-Fi. If you really need to get on this public unsecured hotspot, hotel, airport, etc., then always use a VPN during that connection. And finally, Mac and Windows have a built-in firewall, and that can be set to do not receive any inbound connections. This can be turned on while on a public hotspot. But really, if we go back to step one, is you really want to avoid public unsecured networks at all times. Just like in phase one, we looked at different browsers that we can use on our phones. Now let's have a look at a couple of options for the laptop. One great option would be Firefox. It's a privacy and security focused browser, fully featured and highly customizable, both in terms of look and in terms of security and privacy features. And it's third-party cookie and fingerprint blocking, which is important. And another great option is Brave. It's built on the Chromium platform, which is the same as Google Chrome, but unlike Google Chrome, it doesn't have all of the Google tracking and data collecting information built into the web browser. It's a privacy and security focused browser. It blocks ads and data trackers. It has a private tab with the Tor option, which is a great feature. And something I love about Brave as well, it can sync anonymously across your devices. Firefox, you need to sign in with an email, and then you can sign in with your email to your different devices and Firefox will sync in that way. But Brave, you just get a sync code, and then you're able to use that code to sync some Brave information, whatever you may choose, bookmarks, search history, open tabs, passwords. They can all be synced optionally across your different devices. Let's talk about hardening the Firefox browser. So if we go to Settings, we go to Search, and here we can choose our default search engine. You'll have Google as the default search engine, but we want to change that to something that's a bit more privacy focused. I think DuckDuckGo is a great option as the search engine for Firefox. Next we have Enhanced Tracking Protection. I like to keep this on strict as we want the highest level of privacy and security for this particular browser. Next, on the Privacy and Security tab, Send Websites and Do Not Track Signal I set to Always. Cookies and Site Data, I tick the box that says Delete Cookies and Site Data when Firefox is closed. That way, if I'm logged into Facebook, email, whatever it might be, and I close the web browser, I'm not going to be automatically logged in next time I go in. This is a great privacy feature to have. It does mean you need to log into that service each time you open it, whether that's your email, Facebook, whatever it might be. And clear history when Firefox closes. This is the browser that I want to be able to get on, do some search, whether it's church planting among unreached people in Kazakhstan, something like that. I want to be able to do my search and then have the confidence that when I close the browser, all the history is gone. Whatever I was logged into at the time, it's not logged into anymore. That way, if the device gets handed over to the authorities or someone raids your house, the local or federal police, whoever it might be, and they get you to open the laptop, opening Firefox is not going to have any data on there. You're not going to be signed into any emails for them to go through. It pretty much gives you a clean slate each time you close the browser. Firefox has add-ons just like other browsers. You can go to add-ons and themes. You can pick the extensions that you need. You might want Bitwarden for your password manager and others depending on your security needs. Next, let's have a look at Brave and some basic instructions to harden the Brave browser. Again, we go to the settings. You have trackers and ad blocking I set to standard. Block fingerprinting I set to standard. This is the browser that I want to use for my everyday life. If you're watching Netflix or something, you want to stay logged in. And so this is the browser that I would use for that. And it doesn't have such an aggressive approach and won't just clear everything every time I close the browser. For privacy and security, private window with Tor, I want to have that option, but to be honest, I don't use it because I have another method of accessing the Tor network through the Proton VPN. The search engine, again, I want to select that to DuckDuckGo. And extensions, for Brave, I really just use my password manager. Brave is very good at blocking the ads and the trackers of the websites that I go to. And again, this isn't my aggressive browser that I want to block absolutely everything. Sometimes when the browser is set up in that way, like Firefox is, you might go to just a shopping website or something like that, and you'll find that it's not going to open or things are blocked on the page. You're unable to enter certain details into the website. That's because a lot of the cookies are being blocked. Even some of the trackers might be blocking it to stop the page from functioning properly. In that case, I jump over to Brave and I open the website in the Brave browser. So that's why I have two. One is the aggressive approach I use just for special purposes, and the other is my everyday browser that I use and I log into services with that I'm happy to stay logged into that don't pose any security or privacy risk. Next, let's talk about secure cloud storage. Unlike 10 or 15 years ago when everything used to be kept on the laptop, nowadays it's often better to utilize a secure cloud storage provider as long as we've done our research and we can see that they are going to be a great service for our particular need. First would be Proton Drive, and if it sounds familiar, this is part of the Proton family of mail and VPN. All files are uploaded and encrypted with zero knowledge. That means that Proton Drive, the Proton company, can't read anything that is kept in this cloud. It's completely encrypted and the user is the only one that has the keys. You get 5 gigabytes of storage, so depending on what you need to do as far as keeping things in the cloud, 5 gigabytes might be enough, or you might need to pay for a larger option. pCloud has a lifetime subscription, which is not very common with applications these days. You can pay a one-off price and get a set amount of data storage, and you're not paying an annual subscription. So that's a big win. They do have a zero knowledge folder. It's called the crypto folder. This comes at an additional cost, and you can pay for that and keep things in that folder that you need to be really secured and private, and use the rest of the cloud storage for whatever needs you have. Next up is Ice Drive. Now the good thing about Ice Drive and pCloud is that whether you're using Windows or Mac, they actually have the drive there in your Finder window or in your folders on Microsoft Windows that you can click on it and access your information. Proton Drive is only available at the moment, at least, in the cloud. So you need to access it through the web browser and go through your files that way. And so Proton Drive is not as easy to use. pCloud is a great service if you need things on your laptop and to be able to access them by clicking on a tab on the side of your Finder window in Mac, for example. But Ice Drive Zero Knowledge is included as a separate folder. You get 10 gigabytes of storage for free, or there is a paid service. What we're trying to avoid here is the big tech companies and their cloud storages. So Google Drive, iCloud and OneDrive, they will scan your cloud contents and have the capability to view uploaded files. Now for most of us, that's not really a concern of ours, but we do want to keep in mind that governments can and do get subpoenaed on a regular basis, as we've seen earlier, to request information from people. And we want to make sure that if we're keeping private and secure information, that might be, again, material for reaching a particular people group in a closed nation, it's not something we want kept necessarily in big tech's cloud services. It's something we want to use a private and very robust, secure cloud storage, and that's where these other options might be a possibility for you. Now let's have a look at an introduction into the Linux operating system. Now Linux is an operating system like Windows and like Mac, but it's not the same. It's its own operating system. Linux have various different kinds of operating systems. They call them distributions. These are operating systems which come in various flavors, is another term that's used in the Linux world, and we'll have a look at some of those in a moment. Now the good thing about Linux, it can be installed side by side with Windows or Mac. This is called a dual boot. So when you turn your computer on, you can decide, do you want it to launch the Windows operating system or do you want it to launch the Linux operating system? It can be installed as a virtual machine. We're going to get into that in phase 3. Or the best option, I think, for our security purposes when we're traveling or relocating overseas is to have it on a bootable USB, and we're going to talk about that as well. Some of the benefits of Linux is it's independent. It's free from large corporation tracking and data collection software, which is built into Google, Microsoft and Apple services. So for many of us, this isn't really a big concern. And for those people, I would say continue using Apple and Microsoft as long as it meets your privacy and security needs. But then there are going to be some people who have a specific privacy and security need, and one of those is going to be not having an operating system that has built-in tracking and data collection at the level that the big tech companies do. In that case, Linux is an excellent alternative. The Linux operating system is what we call FOSS, or free and open source. We talked about open source in phase 1, which is software that can be analyzed, critiqued, looked at by anyone. The source code is available online and people can go and look at it. They can give recommendations. This means it's transparent in that everyone can see exactly what's going on with the operating system. And it means that many people can look at it and say, oh, maybe this is better for security, or let's change this. And so you get this community involvement, which can make for a very private and a very secure operating system. Here's a summary of possible scenarios to utilize the Linux operating system. As mentioned before, international workers may be able to operate with a Windows or a Mac PC, and that's totally fine. In certain challenging countries, however, or in difficult situations, it may be better to use Linux operating system. Linux OS has anonymity tools. If surveillance is high and censorship of the internet is a regular problem, a Linux operating system could be beneficial to security, privacy, and anonymity. When emergency communication is needed, in a time-sensitive emergency situation which requires a high level of privacy and anonymity, plug in the USB, open Linux, send the urgent communication, shut down the laptop, and then leave the building. Another scenario might be using Linux for better privacy and freedom from big tech. With Linux distributions, there is minimal data collection. So Linux collects very little data about their users, unlike Windows and Mac, which can collect significant amounts of data by default, as we've mentioned earlier, and many of these cannot be turned off. They're built into the operating system. Privacy and security. Greater control over system settings allows for disabling features that might compromise privacy, and built-in encryption options increases security as well. Being free and open source, Linux operating systems, this means that the source code is available for anyone to inspect, as we just mentioned. This makes it easy to identify and address privacy vulnerabilities. And finally, privacy-enhancing software options. Linux has a huge library of applications that offer a wide range of privacy and security-enhancing software, which is not available on Windows and Mac OS. Of the many distributions that are out there, one is called Tails. It stands for the Amnesic Incognito Live System, and this has some great features for people who are living and working overseas. First of all, it is portable. It's a portable operating system, and it does protect against censorship and surveillance. It has built-in apps to work on sensitive documents and communicate securely. Everything is ready to use and has safe defaults in the operating system. Tails sends all of its traffic through the Tor network automatically, so this is good to protect your privacy online and help you to avoid censorship. And it's amnesic. That means that Tails starts from the same clean slate and everything you do disappears automatically each time you shut down. So the scenario would be that you plug it in, the operating system actually runs from the RAM inside the computer. That means that the operating system is running. Everything that you're doing is not going to be remembered or saved. And even when you turn off the computer deletes everything that was stored in the RAM, the random access memory, and therefore there is no sign that this Tails operating system was even launched on your computer. And so this is a great feature if someone needs this really specific operating system. To finish off, let's introduce Phase 3. In Phase 3, we're going to understand how to respond to threats, assess risks, and create contingency plans for those working in the field. Scan home networks for threats and vulnerabilities. Utilize firewall and network monitoring software on our computers. We're going to install and set up some essential apps for a more enhanced network protection. We're going to look at Stage 2 intermediate mobile device hardening, Stage 2 intermediate laptop hardening, preparing devices for international customs and border crossing, customs and police interrogation tactics. Detailed digital instructions will be given for Phase 3 implementation. And at the end, we're going to look at Phase 4 plus, the final in this series of cybersecurity training seminars. I hope you got a lot out of Phase 2 training seminar today. If you implement the settings and the changes that we went through today on your laptop, it's going to provide a much more private and secure operating system. I'll see you next in Phase 3 Advanced Protection.